Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first Gamer Dad podcast. Name is a work in progress here. I'm not sure if that's what we're going to stick with, but for now, it's the Gamer Dad podcast. Tonight, we are going to be talking about, tonight, whenever you're listening to this, we're going to be talking a little bit about who we are, why we're doing this, and a little bit about Rule Zero stuff. We figured as a first podcast, it would be really good to discuss our pods, Rule Zero. We are a Magic the Gathering, Commander, EDH, whatever you want to call it, pod. So if you're into that stuff, come hang out with us. We're probably going to be doing these podcasts once a month, depending on demand and things like that. Plus time, we're kind of older these days. So yeah, so who are we, right? So let's start out with Jesse here. Jesse and I will be doing this podcast. So let's get to know us first and foremost. So Jesse, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Jesse. Jesse Hoagie when you see me stream on Wednesdays. I've been playing Magic since around Ice Age when I was in middle school. Played in high school mostly. Like in middle school, I started just collecting because I liked the art, I liked cards, and actually started playing when I was in high school when I met a couple of the people that played too. Went to college. Cards didn't really do anything because I was more focused on girls than cards. Sold all my cards for, I think it was $200 back then. That was a playset of all the duels, so many other older cards that were worth a lot. Yeah, it was not a good choice.
It hurts hearing that.
I got back into it when Shards of Alara came out. Actually, like that set when it came out, I don't know why. I don't even remember why I got back into it. But I did. Started collecting. I remember when Innistrad first came out, or not Innistrad, Zendikar, and it had the adventures where you could get like older cards possibly.
Yep.
And became broke buying all the boxes trying to chase the Black Lotus and didn't get anything. Started playing Friday Night Magic, usually using Jund when I could, depending on what was strong, but usually Jund was strong back then. At a local game store called Numbskulls, which, fun fact now, is like a survivalist type store. Like they sell this weird survival gear.
That's an interesting
weird store.
Interesting shift in business model.
Yeah,
there.
And it wasn't really, the environment was pretty bad. The store was itty bitty. It was tiny. People that were playing there were really, really toxic. So I moved to Cooper's Cave, which was right down the road from me at the time, and stayed there for a good while. There's a bug flying around me. I stayed there for, like 5-6 years?
Yeah, I mean, I moved in 2015. So, yeah, probably 5-6 years.
Yeah. I met Matt and Bob. I met Matt in 2008. I'll say 2008. We both worked at the same place together. Met Bob around 2010 when we were both working in Latham next to each other in cubes. Then we started playing together because we noticed we all played.
Yeah, that was such a weird circumstance. Like just browsing like a Star City Games article or something. Like Matt approached me, maybe even before you, and goes, "Do you play?" I was like, "Yeah." Yeah, I do. I'm a little too into it right now.
Yep.
And so.
Yep. And then usually take existing decks and change them. That was what I was good at, like taking something that's good, like a net deck that people call it, that top 8 or something at a tournament, and then I would change it to the local meta where we were, because obviously that doesn't reflect the actual meta.
Right.
Then in 2014, I bought a house, getting married. We're planning on kids, so sold my cards again. But this time it wasn't for $200. It was for much more. It actually gave me my most prized guitar that I have now and the car that I still have now. Then I moved on to Hearthstone because that was kind of the thing back then. And
I remember that.
Much cheaper than Magic was, at least paper Magic. And Arena started coming out. I never got into Magic Online, by the way, because the interface looks like it came from like Windows 95, and it just does not work for me. But Arena started coming out, and I remember, I think I might have said it to you, that as soon as Arena comes out for mobile, like iPad, iPhone, I will drop Hearthstone and only do Arena. And
I was playing Arena on PC when it first dropped. I was in beta
Yeah, I was in beta too. Yep.
Yeah.
But I didn't focus on it just because it's easier for me to sit here on my iPad or on my iPhone and play a
Yep.
couple games. So whenever that came out, I don't remember the year, 2020 maybe, I dropped Hearthstone and have only been doing Arena. And then, I don't know how many years ago, 2 years ago maybe? I don't remember how long ago it was, but I started getting back into Commander, Paper Magic. Had the Prosh Precon. I think it's called Power Hungry is what it was called. And then started customizing that and then kept branching out because I wanted to do more, have more decks. Mostly because I wanted people to come over and play because they didn't have any decks. So, you could borrow mine.
Yeah, we were craving that human interaction during that late stage of the pandemic. It was getting bad.
Mm-hmm. And now here I am, 16 decks later, playing every week, sometimes more than once a week.
You gotta love that. You gotta love it when you can find that time to do something that you love. You know, Wednesdays at 8:30, Gamer Dad Bob. So yeah, so Jesse, I've known him for a long time at this point, 14, 15 years. And we've always been talking Magic, strategizing, disagreeing a lot about cards, evaluation, decks, sideboards. And I think that's actually something that's going to make this podcast very interesting, is because Jesse and I do not agree all the time. And sometimes it's as simple as we will never agree on a topic. And that keeps things interesting, right? Because if you don't have someone with a different opinion than you, it becomes an echo chamber and you don't have a different perspective on things. So anyway, that's Jesse. So now I'm going to talk about myself, which is one of my favorite things to do. Okay, not really. I'm just kidding. So for me, I've been playing Magic for a year longer than Jesse. I started in 1994 in middle school with Revised. I seem to remember being like 12 or 13 years old when stuff came out. And back then, we were playing for Ante. What the hell is Ante, guys? Yeah, you would kind of offer up your best card. And if you lost, you gave that card up. I won a Bayou. I didn't know how good it was at the time, but I won a Bayou off of a kid. That was awesome. And then my very first box of Magic I got for my birthday, my 14th birthday in 1995, was a box of Ice Age. So Jesse's first set. And I remember cracking packs and the fun and getting the what was the ice crawl worm dude. I seem to remember him being a big artwork on the card packs. I didn't play in high school like Jesse, mainly because I didn't have time. I got separated from my friends that played, and I wasn't able. Nobody in high school can afford Magic the Gathering. I'm sorry, that's just.
Back then they couldn't, and now they can't even worse.
It's just not happening. So we all paused. I spent 7 years in college. Started in 2000, graduated in 2007. Got that great communications degree that I'm not using. So I started up again in 2008. I was talking with one of my suite mates. And I was like, "Did you ever play? I have this old box of cards sitting in my closet when I moved back home." And we started looking, seeing if we could put some stuff together. I'm like, you know what? I should just buy a box. So I bought a box of Conflux. So I got in a little bit later than Jesse did, getting back into things, but it was still during the Shards block. And I remember seeing these cards called Planeswalkers. I'm like, what the hell is Nicol Bolas Planeswalker? I remember the Elder Dragon Nicol Bolas, where, he had that upkeep and all that other good stuff. So started brewing, bought a box of Shards of Alara shortly after that. And then when Alara Reborn came out, I actually knew Jesse at that point. Because do you remember we split a case of Alara Reborn?
Mm-hmm.
You came to my house and picked up the 3 boxes, and that was a long drive home, I'm sure, because we did not live close together.
It was like an hour and a half away, I think.
Yeah, it was not a short drive for Jesse for that. But after I started building decks, I attended my first FNM in Rutland, Vermont. And after 2 or 3 nights, 2 or 3 weeks or so, I made my very first top 4 in FNM. And I was playing Esper Artifacts. My win con was hoping that Master Transmuter, my favorite card of all time, would survive, and I could just play out an Inkwell Leviathan, this giant shrouded creature with Island Walk that nobody could interact with. In fact, most of the decks couldn't interact with artifacts at all because if you remember, the main black kill spell was Terror at the time. And Terror says non-black, non-artifact. So I was just blanking people left and right, and it was an accidental metagame call that I top forward with. And after that, I got bit with the bug. I had to continue playing. Got the new job, met Matt and Jesse. They noticed I played. We formed a play group really quickly after that. They invited me to FNM. Our play group, I'm going to say this. I mean, if anybody from Cooper's Cave back in the day is listening to this, I don't think they liked our play group because one of us almost every single week was routinely in the top 4, if not 2 of us, sometimes all 3 of us, depending on how the pairings went. It became kind of like this big fish. There were some good players at that shop too. Not everybody, but some very good players that really challenged us. So, that's my credentials, guys. I was a top 4 Friday night Magic regular. So back in 2009, I was reading Star City Games articles religiously, trying to figure out the metagames. And like Jesse, I was tweaking my deck, for the metagames. But I'm a brewer. I like brewing decks from scratch. Jesse makes them better. That's part of why our pod works so well, our play group. And so I found this interesting new format called EDH and began sharing that with the guys and everything. And my old college suite mate, he was interested in it because he still had some cards. And we started playing EDH. I mean, it became that non-competitive, right? So when you didn't want to have that full competitive mode turned on, we played EDH because it was non-competitive. We had wacky board states. EDH was not what Commander is today. It was definitely a slower format, lower powered cards that were not tuned for Commander specific things, like Eminence didn't exist, things like that. So I enjoyed that format. We'd have games run like 2-3 hours on the routine. Just a game would run 2 to 3 hours. We'd eat breakfast, play, break for lunch, play some more, make some good food, eat, drink, play cards, discuss new deck ideas. Hey, wouldn't it be funny if we made a Lorthos the Tidemaker deck? It's mono blue, tap shit down. It's not good, right? But that's what we did. We came up with ideas. It was a blast. There was no pressure to win. The only pressure was for your deck to do the things. In 2015, I moved away from everybody. I moved to North Carolina. And my cards sat in my apartment. They just sat there. I didn't play. I didn't like any of the shops near me. Didn't really jive with any of the local hobby shops or anything. So I also sold my collection. I had accumulated much more of a collection because I was playing Modern and Legacy as well competitively. And I ended up selling enough to put a down payment on a house. I like a big part of me looks back at that and goes, that was a terrible idea. Imagine how much value those cards are, right? I bet it's 100,000 worth of cards, today.
Easy.
But it was a down payment on a house. So can't really regret that. Sold that house, built a new house. So here we are, and here I am now post pandemic, just craving to play Commander again, Magic Gathering, Magic Arena. I've lost that super competitive edge that it takes for Arena, and Best of One is just, boy, man, Best of One gets me. I've Jesse has the patience for it. I do not. I can't do it. So I fronted the idea to Jesse and Matt. Play some Spell Table with me once a week. Let's try and do that. No pressure. Except for we'll be streaming it live on Twitch. And I got them to actually sign a waiver that they said it. Okay, no, I didn't. They agreed to play. And again, it started small with pre-cons and everything. And then I think I started buying more cards. I think it was my fault. And I started brewing.
The arms race began.
And the arms race began. That's right. I think there was a TikTok or a reel with that, and that's what it was. So here we are today. I'm looking at my decks. It's like 16 or 17 and they're still growing. I'm still brewing. My goal for this stream, this pod is one new deck a month for a little while. I got to keep things interesting for our audience. All 25 followers we have right now on Twitch. I like to keep things interesting, and I always have new ideas popping into my head for decks. I have to mention that this is we're not spring chickens. We're not young people, right? We're not your average 25-year-old content creators that are single, unmarried, no kids. I have a 4-year-old. Jesse has 2 kids. We have full-time jobs, lives. So things always get in the way. So all of this that we're doing, we're fitting in with our lives, and that makes things interesting, difficult, very rewarding. And this is why I came up with the Gamer Dad, handle, because that's it. I'm a gamer and a dad, and I have those things in my life that I love. So we're 20 minutes into this here, and we haven't even talked about anything outside of ourselves. So this podcast is going to be talking about our play group's Rule Zero, which, if we struck while the iron was hot about a month and a half ago when the big Rule Zero conversations were happening. Again, life got in the way. We'd be a bit more timely with this conversation, but I think it's an important conversation to have and talk about, especially for a pod like ours where we don't always get 4 players either, which has been a point of contention between me and Jesse slightly. I know Jesse feels very strongly about it. I feel less strongly about it. Nonetheless, Jesse has all valid opinions on 3-player Commander, but our Rule Zero stuff is really because we're old. We don't have time to be nitpicking on things. We don't have the energy to be highly, highly competitive with things. We just want to play the game, want our decks to do the thing. Talking about our very first rule that's always been my Rule Zero rule, we like to do unlimited mulligans to 7. So we say that, but it's within reason, right? I don't want the game to be over before it starts. I'd hate it if Jesse mulled to like 4 cards because he couldn't get a good hand. And then, what's the point in playing? Or even 5 cards. What's the point in playing? I also don't want to see Jesse cheat that rule and mulligan till he gets Sol Ring, Arcane Signet in his opening hand, because that's not cool.
Once, and then I won turn 5.
Yeah. That said, that was not off a mulligan, right? That was your first draw.
That was the first or second. It wasn't I've only mulled more than once, I think 2 or 3 times. It does not happen that often. Right.
So we are not cheating that Rule Zero rule, but we want everybody to have an equal chance of just playing the damn game. It's very frustrating when someone gets mana screwed in Commander. It really is, because you sit there and you got 3 other players doing things, and you're sitting there on 3 lands going, what am I even doing? Your commander costs 6. What am I even doing here? And they don't attack you because there's no point, or they do attack you because they have to complete game actions, right? And I need an attack trigger or a hit trigger. So that's why we came up with the unlimited mulligans to 7 within reason rule. I think it's a good one, honestly. And I haven't heard any other people talk about anything like that, right?
Anytime I'm because I have another pod that I play with in person. It's always been a rule for that pod too. So I have not played in a pod where it has not been the rule.
Does anybody mulligan more than once? Have you seen anybody do that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. It's interesting because, you watch Shuffle Up and Play or any of the other ones. Actually, some of the other ones like Commander at Home, EDH Hijinks and stuff, you don't even see them mulligan, right? But Shuffle Up and Play, Professor always says, first one's free.
But you got to wonder how many of those edit the mulligans out.
Yeah, right. And were there mulligans? Did they decide, man, this is not going to make for good content? Draw up to 7, dude.
Yeah.
What's the magic behind the cameras there? So maybe it's just an unspoken Rule Zero, but I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about Fight Club here. We have unlimited mulligans to 7 within reason. The next one I have on my list is try to avoid playing spiteful and hateful cards or combos that hard lock your opponents out. So what would a hard lock be, Jesse?
Basically,
you don't need an example. I'm just talking about.
I'm trying to think of an example, but it's basically you play something where my deck can't function at all. Right. You have your Pillow Fort deck can get that way, where because I tend to play mostly aggressive creature based decks, and that deck, like I think we had one time where I had to pay 4 for each attacking creature. It's like I have 10 creatures on board, like my Taurian's deck. Like I have all these creatures, and I can't pay 40 mana to attack you, so I'm pretty much dead unless someone else could take care of you.
That is incredibly unfun, right? So, or another hard lock would be like, I have an infinite combo where I can create a creature at will, sacrifice a creature at will, and force everybody through like a Grave Pact or a Erebos's Dictate of Erebos or Butcher of Malakir. We've seen that in our pod before. But, something like that could be a hard lock for players where they're like, I can't stick a creature. I have no win con anymore. I can't stick a creature. Now, let me back up. I say that these are Rule Zero things. They're not hard and fast like any Rule Zero. These are just conversation pieces. Jesse has a deck where he has the ability to have a combo close to that. It's more sorcery speed, right? It's not like you're screwed.
The Will Hell is, I have Butcher, I have Grave Pact, I have Erebos in there, but I have no ways of tutoring them up like most of those decks do.
Right, so we try to play fair Magic when it comes to that. I have this whole theory statement that I say all the time, and I think it drives Jesse nuts. It's one of 99 cards, right? And if you draw it, you draw it.
Right.
We're not tutoring. If you draw it, you draw it. If you got it, you got it. Good for you, your deck does the thing. To me, that's fair Magic, right? It's not, I'm tutoring. I can consistently tutor for this hard lock combo, turn 3, turn 4, every single game, and the hell with the rest of you, right? That's not fair Magic. That's not playing the game.
No, that's gold fishing.
Right. We're not, we are certainly not that spiky for Commander. Now, if we were playing competitive, what is competitive? This is what happens when we do this at 9:30 at night. If we were playing competitive Magic, yeah, that's the idea. You want to win the game against your opponents. But I kind of want to sling cards on a Wednesday night and not go to bed at 9 o'clock because I got nothing better to do, and someone hard locked the entire board turn 4. So yeah. Next one up, which took some evolution and conversation with, again, Rule Zeros, it's conversations with your pod. Turns out that alt win cons don't seem to be very fun. And if you're playing fair Magic, like I just said, you don't have hate for them always, right? I found this out with a deck that I claimed was dirtily, and I was like, I don't know, it just does the thing. It plays gates and it wins with Maze's End and things. That deck didn't lose, as it turned out. It just didn't lose. And it became incredibly unfun the second they saw that was my deck that I was playing. Because they're trying to play fair Magic and I'm playing lands that are my win con. Nobody's playing that much land destruction. Nobody's packing an Armageddon in our pod. So, alternative win cons, we're kind of dancing around with, we're like, well, probably not. How would you feel about, Felidar Sovereign hitting that, 40 life?
40 life in my Will deck, where it's a life gain deck. That's literally, I play it, I win.
Yeah. What about that, what's that Sarah card? The single white card that becomes Sarah a 6 Ascendant. Sarah Ascendant. I mean, like that
is in my deck. That
needs to go away in Commander. Like the turn you play it, turn 1, it's a 6/6 flying lifelinker. I mean, come on now. I'm not saying get rid of it from your deck. Again, 1 of 99, but things like that, those win cons that are like, well, it's Commander. I can easily do this. I can play Mortal Kombat and bin 20 creatures into my yard. That's pretty easy to do. I can play Maze's End and turbo fog you guys out and nuke the board the whole time with Child of Alara, which we found out I could do. Here I thought it was just a dirtily Commander deck. I was like, this seems good. I'll just play this and Child's my grenade and I'll win with the Maze's End. I had tutors for it too, right? Not fair Magic. That deck's been retired because we had a conversation. Can you think of any other alt win cons that would be like ridiculous for us right now?
I don't know if they're alt win cons, but like the take the extra turn type things, like too many of those.
Oh my god, yeah. If you're like time walking three turns in a row or something, that's rough.
You cast Alorn Epiphany, and then you do Time Walk, and then you do Time Warp, and it's like, okay, you're on your fourth turn, like in a row.
I think you see that a lot in Historic Brawl and Arena.
I was just saying,
from blue decks. Yeah. It's brutal. It's like all counter spells, and it's all counter spells. It's all extra turns, and your opponent in Historic Brawl, because that's 1v1, just loses the will to live and just quits out. I mean, what else are you going to do? All right, I think we've killed that alt win cons one. So next one, miss triggers, guys. Again, this is not a competitive REL. Miss triggers are okay. If you call it out at a good moment and the pod agrees, we'll go back. We can go back for things like that. But communication is important. Oh shit, I missed this trigger. I haven't taken any other game actions. Are you guys okay with going back with this? And you get the agreement of the table, right? Sometimes the table's going to be like, no, dude, you missed your trigger in your first main step. You're in your second or first main phase. You're in your second main phase now. You're not getting that back. I think Matt in our pod is a big culprit for trying to go back on missed triggers. And it's like his second main phase. It's like, come on, buddy. I missed one last night in my Yuma deck, and I said, screw it. It's a May trigger. It ain't happening. Right. I think Jesse and I have definitely said, if you miss your May trigger, forget it.
Yep. It's a May. If it's something that's not a May, then that's a little different because you have to do it. But if it's a May, that's, I'll remind you a couple times maybe.
Yeah.
And then after like the second or third time, nope, sorry. I'm not going to remind you. You're going to miss it.
I'm not reminding you. You've done this to yourself, and I'm still trying to win the game eventually. So that actually piggybacks really nice into the next one. And this is a simple one for us. Just don't be a jerk, because everyone does make mistakes. Everyone does miss triggers. People misunderstand the board state. People misread cards and what they do.
Or like last night, Joe missed that was it Midnight Rider or something? Whenever a creature died, he'd lose a life.
Mm-hmm.
That literally killed him.
Yeah, that was his last life point on that trigger, right? Oops, he thought he could survive, but he didn't. He also swung into a 3/3 with his braids, which was also a 3/3 because he forgot a zombie token was buffed.
I going to remind him of that? No,
I wouldn't.
I sat there stone face. We couldn't see it because we don't have cameras on our faces, but I was like smiling. I'm like, come on, do it. I saw him tap it, and I'm like, come on, be at me.
Yeah, I mean, oopsie, and we all missed that I had buffs on my creatures when I swung in, because we were like, Joe can protect himself. No, he can't. But just don't be a jerk about things. We're not playing for cash, right? We are not. Gamer Dad Pod is not like a cash pool every week where the winner gets $25 or bigger. This is just a small pod of weekly players. We're all adults. We all have lives and jobs and everything, and we just want to wind down and play. So I am not going to be on your ass because you missed a trigger. I don't have the energy at that point in the night to be a jerk about things. I just don't. And I think the more games that we've played, the less emotional we've gotten with things too, because everybody's won a certain amount of games. Everybody's lost plenty of games. And as the night goes on, as the weeks go on, someone's going to win and 3 people are going to lose, or 2 people in our little triangle are going to lose. And that's it. And by the way, don't get salty because someone attacked you and you had no defenders. That's just how it works. Sorry. You can have a conversation about that and be like, hey, if you don't attack me this turn, I'll protect you next turn or something. Diplomacy is optional. We can talk about things and be like, yeah, you promise not to attack me? Yeah. Okay. Cool. But I don't have to.
It's up to you, your choice. But if you do the diplomacy route, don't stab him in the back and trick him.
No, that's not cool. That's just shitty magic. You shouldn't be doing that, right? If you make a deal, hold up your end of the deal.
Yeah, like if I say, Bob, I'm not going to attack you. Okay, then I'll do this, and then the next turn, I lied. I'm going to attack you. Nope.
Yeah, that's.
Or if you can't help it, like if Matt casts one of his stupid goad
Goad, yeah.
things, I don't have a choice. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not doing this because I want to. I don't have a choice.
This
But,
is going to hurt me as much as it hurts you.
Yep.
Yeah, hold up your end of the deal, right?
Yeah, there's been times where it's like, if I swing with this creature, will you block with this creature? So we both get a benefit. Don't go back on it. So I know I'm going to block with this one instead, so I get the benefit, not you.
Right, or are you okay with me poking you for 1 damage so I can loot? Because I really need to draw a card and discard a card because I'm missing land drops left and right. Sure, I won't block. I won't block your 1/1. I'm at 40
okay,
life.
I'm not going to block you on 1, then I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to pump it, and then I'm going to pump it, and then you're going to take 10 instead of 1.
Yeah, that's not cool either. That's a really good point, right? So don't frame a deal without divulging the whole deal, if you will, right? And the person you're making the deal with shouldn't have to be that skeptical. Mm-hmm. Are you sure you're not going to pump them? Well, what about other spells you're going to... Or you say, well, I'm not going to attack you, but I'm going to drain you for 10 life with a different, ability or something.
I didn't attack you. I didn't... that's just underhanded.
That's not cool either, right? So... And we don't do that. I don't think there's been a match where we've done anything underhanded like that.
No, there has been times where I said I'm not going to attack you, and then Matt cast a goad spell, and I'm like, I don't have a choice. Like, I have to.
Do I get salty about that, or do I just get bunked in the head and say it is what it is? It is what it is. That's how the game works. That's the rules.
We say maybe we should rule 0 goad.
Yeah, we definitely had that conversation.
In free player, yes.
That gets really rough in 3-player. And Goad is such a weird mechanic to me anyway. I mean, how many times have we had to look up the rulings on Goad between must attack if able and can't, if it's only 2 players, it can still attack the other, Goad is a weird mechanic, and especially in 3 players, or as you get down to 2 players in your pod.
That's another thing too. Don't be afraid to pause the game, pop out your laptop or your second monitor, and look up a rule.
Yes.
If you don't know how something works, I'm not sure how this works. Well, let's look it up.
Yeah, believe me, none of us are level. What's the highest level judge you can get? Level 5? Like none of us.
5? Yeah.
None of us are there. None of us are remotely there. None of us have aspirations to be there.
I studied to be a judge, like back when we were competitive in FNM, and I'm like, I don't have the patience for this.
I finished school, man. I don't need to take another test. So, I mean, none of us know everything about Magic and every interaction. And by the way, fun thing about Magic is you're always going to find an interaction that you haven't seen before. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, the internet has seen most of these because there are so many Magic the Gathering players, but I've lost count of the amount of times where we'd pull up the Gatherer and look up rules on cards and be like, does this do what we think it does? Does this interaction do what we think it does? Sometimes it does. Sometimes it doesn't. And then it's like, oh, well, I don't want to do that. Okay, you don't have to do that. I mean, unfortunately, you revealed your line of play, but you don't have to do that.
No, so you can take it back.
Yeah, take it back. What's your plan B, man? And then we all learn how that interaction goes. So the next time it happens, it's more secret or, whatever it is, and we're good to go. So that's a really good point, right? Don't be afraid to pause. Don't be afraid to take a look and see how cards interact with each other, rules on cards, erratas, right? I mean, if you're playing with some older cards like Lord of the Undead, right? That's errata to be a zombie. Its creature type is just like Lord or something on the card, but that's a zombie. So knowing that or pausing and saying, hey, is Scarab God a zombie?
Yeah, like last night.
We looked it up last night. Scarab God is not a zombie. It's just a god type. It hasn't been errata to be a zombie. It will never be a zombie. It does not get a buff from your Cemetery Reaper. It's okay.
Yeah, there's been
okay
times
to look up stuff.
I can't remember the card, but like we clicked on it in Spell Table and it said one thing, and the actual Gatherer errata was something different. It's like, well, that's not what Spell Table says.
Spell Table's not perfect either, chat.
No.
So yeah, I mean, that's the thing. So it's important that you pause and think about things, because it's like, I'm looking at this physical card on paper. It reads one way. Spell Table reads it another way. And oh, by the way, the Gatherer and Oracle reading on the card is another way. So pause. Take a second to understand what you're doing, especially when things get really complicated, passing priorities.
I was just going to say, like, piggybacking on the pause thing, don't rush through what you're doing. Like, if you do something, pause and see if there's any responses. Don't be like, okay, I do this, and this, and then if someone says, hold on, I have a response. Like, no, I'm already past that. You can't do it.
Yeah, you actually caught me with that one last night, and I wasn't even thinking as I did that, you know. You were like, wait, you already drew cards, Bob.
And the funny thing is that was a Jwari Disruption I had in hand. And
I figured it was something like that, you know. And
after, the first couple turns, it becomes useless because everybody has the mana.
Yeah, and you were flooding that game anyway, so you're like, great, another land in my hand, great.
Yep. So it's like I should have, looking back, I should have used it on you then because I had no other chance the entire rest of the game.
Yeah. Now that game, we all just scooped and moved to another game because reasons, but
because we got hard locked in a 3-player game.
Yeah. It was tough. So that's a really good point, right? Again, not competitive. There's no time limit. Don't rush through your turns for the sake of everybody else, right? Pass that priority. Give them a beat. Give them a second to think. You know, of all of us, the person who's in the tank the longest is always Matt. So, you know, that means he's processing things a little bit slower as well. So we should be taking our time with our turns. Hey, I'm going to attempt to do this, or this is my intent, or I'm casting this. Any responses? Especially when people have mana up, you know. It's one thing if every single person's tapped out. None of us in our pod are running Force of Will or the other Pact of Negation or things like that, you know. So being tapped out is normally going to be fine. Then you can say, yeah, I'm going to do this. Everybody's tapped out. And then someone will say response, still sadness on the stack. Now, that's a really good point, Jesse. We didn't have that one written down as one of our bullet points, but that's a really good one. For us.
Brings me back to one of my first FNMs, but it was what really turned me off of Numbskulls, actually. I think there's a guy, I think his name is Jurgis. Can't remember his name, but he got banned from that store, and he got banned from Creepers for a while too. We were playing, and he did something, and the creature came on. I said, and there was a pause. I said, okay, I'll lightning bolt it, or it was lightning bolt or something similar effect. And he literally stood up, slammed his hand down, and said, "I didn't pass you priority yet." I'm just sitting here like, what? And Casey, if you remember Casey, stood up, grabbed him, and then someone came and grabbed me. And they're like, he's new. Like, you need to take it easy on the new guys. And he goes, I'm not taking it easy on anybody. And it was this big thing. And it's like, man, I'm not coming here again.
That is not how to cultivate a Magic community right there. I didn't pass priority. So were you going to? I mean, knowing what we know now,
there was
right?
a good 5-second pause. Like, he played the card. I'm just sitting here. And then I said, okay, I'll bolt it or whatever card I had. And then that's when the whole thing went down.
Now, was he going to move on to take another game action?
There was something came on, and then he was going to do something, or something was going to happen. I don't remember the card. I don't think it was Bloodbraid Elf. It was something similar. But he had every right to do something else. But there was that pause there.
Yeah,
it's like, okay, so there's a pause. So then I'm going to do this in response.
I mean, we'll even say that in our pod, right? All right, I'm passing priority. Next person's in line, right, in the priority line.
Or like Joe last night when he cast Sign in Blood, he goes, "I'm going to attempt to cast Sign in Blood. Is there any response?"
Right.
And then I countered it.
And I said, "You want to target me, right?"
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that's good sportsmanship. That's good Magic. That's what we should be doing, and that's what the community should be doing. Again, EDH Commander. Let's put CEDH aside first and foremost, because the C is for competitive, and people have a taste for that. We're not playing that, so our commander, our EDH is not competitive, and it shouldn't be, in the sense that. Screw you. You didn't pass priority. I didn't pass priority. You tapped your card wrong, missed a trigger. Again, goes back to don't be a jerk. People make mistakes. People are allowed to make mistakes. There's nothing on the line in Gamer Dad Bob's Twitch stream on Wednesday night. There's just nothing on the line. Yeah, so don't be a jerk. There's no point. You get nothing out of it. You get nothing.
Nope.
All
The
right,
only thing you get out of it is upsetting people.
Yeah. The final bullet I have is probably the most controversial because some people may agree with this and others may not. I actually am somewhere in the middle on this one. And here's the thing. Cards that simply win the game that have no synergy with your deck. So cards like Insurrection in a red deck, just because you're a red deck and you can play Insurrection. Black decks playing Torment of Hailfire. It's my late game win con if I draw it. Do you have like a discard deck theme, or did you just cram it in there because it's good stuff and it wins games? To me, those kinds of cards make for extremely anticlimactic endings for everyone except the person casting it. And they're like, yeah, go me. Great, you crammed a good... Yeah, you crammed a good stuff card in your deck that plays it on color. So to me, I'm not a fan of that mindset, right? When I build a deck, I build it on a theme. I like to build my deck on theme with what I'm trying to do with the deck. I will not always pull in the most optimized cards from EDH Rec or Scryfall, right, for my deck because it's not on theme, right? I'm not going to play Jeweled Lotus in every single one of my decks that can afford it. I'm not going to play Mana Vault because I can. I'm not going to play Insurrection in every red deck because I can, because you get to the end of the game, you got, what the hell is that, 10 mana? I don't even remember.
So, yeah.
It's like 9 or 10 mana. I mean, if you and if the games go long, you can get 10 mana. The board is stalled. I'll cast Insurrection, win the game. Cool. Great play, dude. You crammed a good card in your deck. I don't like it.
Insurrection is 8 mana.
Oh, well, even easier to cast than I thought. So it's 5 in triple red. Yeah. So that's my hot take, I guess, of all of these Rule Zero things. I think most of these are pretty tame.
I have one that's not on there. I mean, it's not like...
Oh, cool.
I don't know if it's like related to playing the game. Proxies are okay.
In our pod, actually, proxies are okay because we want to play the game.
Yep, proxies are okay. I've lost count of how many proxies I have between Proxy King and lately printing proxies. Like my Will deck is 100% all proxies. Like every single card is a proxy. And I would not be where I am and have this many decks I do if it wasn't for proxies. They
keep the game affordable for those who want to play the game.
Mm-hmm. Like you put these cards in sleeves and you cannot tell the difference between the Power 9 I have behind me. Guess what? Those are not real.
And you're not going to try and sell them as real either,
Nope.
By the way. Right? Nobody's doing that.
Nope. And if someone tries to say, I don't like you playing proxies, I'm like, okay, then I'm not playing with you. Like,
yeah,
sorry.
I just want to play the game. I'm not again, back to the good stuff cards, right? I'm not proxying cards just to have good cards, right? Otherwise, I'd be playing unbanned shit in Commander as proxies. That's not why we're doing it. We're doing it because we wanted a Underground Sea as a dual land in our deck. I wanted it because I don't want to spend $2 on a single card when I can spend 4 or less on a single card. It makes our decks affordable.
I think I have 2 or 3 Gaze Cradles that I proxied for $4 when the real one cost $1,000.
Right. I mean, who's got $1,000 just to play a Gaze Cradle? And guess what? It's on theme with most green decks. So, Nykthos, that's like a $50 card. I'm not spending $50. That's in all of my monocolored decks. I'm not spending $50. I have
Souls.
5 or 6 monocolor. Oh my God, Cavern of Souls. Yeah. Things like that. Your mana base should not be the most prohibitive thing to playing Commander. And having a good mana base allows you to do the things, right? So your deck can do the thing. We talked about this last night, right? The player with the best mana base and best mana availability is typically going to take over the game, right? We saw that with a timely Cabal Coffers in the mono black deck last night. I mean, Joe that was it. He had all of the manas, and Jesse and I couldn't keep up.
Nope, because how many times have you removed Braids? I think I removed Braids
twice,
least 3 times.
Yeah.
Then he could just keep recasting it because he was flooding.
Yep.
He was drawing all the swamps, and suddenly his Cabal Coffers tapped for 10 mana.
Yep. But who's to say that he can't play that Cabal Coffers if he couldn't afford it?
Mm-hmm.
You know? So proxies are fine. I'm a fan of them. I have been getting them from where I can get them right now. I just bought an entire Dan deck made of proxies, well, except for the lands, you know, because I was enamored with Dan after watching that Shuffle Up and Play. That was the blue mage in me was like, yes, this is awesome. It looks really fun. I don't have anybody to play with, but I have a Dan deck now too. And it's not, you know, card for card, the one from that show. It's Dan decks are not, I'm getting off into a tangent, but they are not, there's not a set rule on all of the cards in the deck. So I kind of made it my own. But that whole deck is a proxy. Who cares? I mean, Dan is a niche format that nobody's playing that competitively either, guys. So who cares if it's an entire deck made of proxies? So yeah, that's actually a really good one to bring up, Jesse. We want our pod to be as inclusive as possible with decks that people are coming up with, whether it's a net deck or whether you're brewing something. And we want you guys to be able to build those decks. We want to be able to encourage Matt to build more decks because he has like 3 decks. If proxies help him, by God, just buy them. I just want to see you play. I want you to play what you want to play, not because you're priced out of it.
And that's one of the things with Magic is it's getting more and more expensive. You know, they're printing more cards. You think it would come down in price, but nope.
I'll be curious to see if the why can't I think of the name of the damn cards? They just got reprinted. Hold on.
Modern Horizons 3.
They just reprinted them. Ruby Medallion cards like those, the Jet Medallions and everything, the ones that reduce the casting cost. Those were just reprinted last year in the Commander Masters, and now they're reprinted again in Modern Horizons 3. They did not come down in price as much as we thought they would with Commander Masters.
No, like the Tempest version of Ruby Medallion is $16.
And guess what? Commander Masters, $16. Didn't bring the price down one bit, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say I don't think Modern Horizons is going to bring the price down on that either. I just don't see it happening.
Like the price fluctuation on TCG says 27, but between $27.40 and $27.80.
Wow,
like 40 cents difference between the beginning of the year and now. Over the last year, it was peaked 2023 of May. It was $40. Now it's down to like closer to 20.
Wow, I do not remember them being $40.
But that's TCG. Like you take that with a grain of salt. Because you scroll down just a little bit more, and the first listing for a moderately played one is $16.74. So.
Yeah, that's always interesting too when you're buying cards. I always joked about this on eBay stuff. You can list things for whatever you want on eBay, and when you Google things, it's going to tell you what the price is, what the listing price is. It's not going to tell you what it's sold at. Those $40 Ruby Medallions might not have ever sold. But so, you know, Magic should not be price prohibitive, especially Commander. And it's unfortunately getting there with that, especially with the way that they're printing these cards in sets. And you know, we were talking about this offline last night after stream with all the bonus sheets, right? The only reason people are buying boxes of Magic cards right now is for the cards in the bonus sheets because they're in Commander. And they're hoping that they do good in their box openings as opposed to buying singles.
Yeah, that's one I remember because Shuffle Up and Play, or not Shuffle Up, like, you know, Tolarian Community College does the whole opening the boxes and see, you know, if he gets the value out of it. And the only reason he got value out of Introduction is because of the bonus sheets. The only reason. Yep. If you take the bonus sheets out, he'd get maybe half.
If that right now. I mean, these new sets coming out are not exactly blowing things up. No. I thought Murders was not good. I wasn't a huge fan of the cards in Outlaws of Thunder Junction, though I did play the Commander deck from it last night. Not out of the box. I tweaked it, right? So,
but what does that say about the state of Magic that they wouldn't be able to sell a box unless it had those bonus sheets in it?
And that's what it almost feels like right now. Is the only reason these sets are selling is for the bonus sheets for the Commander players. I think the state of Standard, which could be a completely different podcast topic, because again, Jesse and I come from Friday Night Magic Standard grinders. We can talk about Standard all day. It's not like we ignore that format. the state of standard's not fun, especially in the best of one space on Magic Arena. It's just not. It's the fastest deck to win and lose is the prevailing deck. I want to win as fast as possible, or I want to lose as fast as possible, because I just want to play that next game. Got to play that next game to rank up. So, yeah. All right, so we have used almost an entire hour. I promise you guys that these podcasts will be no more than an hour each month. What do you like? What'd you like to hear? Any other rule zeros that we should include? Any rule zeros that we should cross
There was
out?
one that we didn't talk about. When
What
faced
did we
with a tough
miss?
decision you're uncomfortable with, roll a die and let fate decide.
I forgot I wrote that. That's a really good diplomatic move, right? And I don't know if that's necessarily a rule zero, because that might be another one of those unspoken ones, Jesse, that we talked about when we opened with this. Because you said, I don't know, every pot I've been mulligans unlimited to 7. This is a really good, safe political move, right? If you don't like to make a tough decision, right? Who should I attack? And everybody's board is open, right? So I don't want to piss someone off just because. Roll a die. Let fate decide. Maybe Matt or Joe is still going to be upset that the die rolled to them, but like, it was a die roll, dude. I given a choice, I could have just attacked you directly, or, so random stuff like that is it's a really good way to pass the buck on your responsibility of being a jerk or not. I really like that. I saw that at, of course, I always had this feeling before, but I saw it on, what was it, Game Nights Live from Chicago. Did you watch that by any chance, Jesse?
No, I did not.
It was actually really fun. The professor was in that, Rachel Weeks was in that, and then it was Josh Lee Kwai and Jimmy. Is it Wong? God, I'm terrible with names sometimes. But they did Game Nights Live, and they had like a dice, a giant inflatable dice that they threw into the audience to roll when faced with a tough decision, like who should I attack or something. But I've always had that kind of in the back of my mind, like I don't want to just piss someone off because I can. And this is the other weird thing, right? Some of these rules partially contradict the others, because above I talk about, it's okay to take game actions, guys. That's the game. I should be attacking with my creatures. I should be targeting my opponent's stuff, committing crimes, if you will. So, that's okay. But sometimes it's also okay to not be a jerk when you take game actions and roll a dice. Nobody, I don't think, is going to be offended that the dice rolled on them. If they are, they're really soft. And they should consider not playing Magic the Gathering, because you're going to get attacked. You're going to get targeted. Like last week, good example, I played my Karlach deck, and I just I couldn't go wide versus your boards. Was I upset that you guys were attacking me? Maybe a tiny, tiny bit. But, I mean, it made sense. I didn't have blockers. What else are you going to do? Try and beat on each other? That's not going to work. Then I would have won, simply because you guys were trading creatures. So stuff like that makes sense as part of the game. Do it. So what'd you guys like about this? What would you like to hear? Let us know. I'm on Twitter. My handle is iPlayIslands. You can find me on Twitch, and Jesse Wednesday nights with us. Twitch.tv/GamerDadBob. This is our Gamer Dad podcast, and we're going to try and do this monthly for you guys. So I hope you found this interesting. If you're a Magic boomer like us, from the Ice Ages, if you will, of Magic the Gathering, you may feel the same way as we do. You may feel strongly about things, or you may disagree, and that's good too. I'm up for a healthy conversation with things. So we'll get this podcast out there once a month, and I'm looking forward to doing this, and we can just talk about things. I think our next topic, Jesse, that I would like to talk about is an elephant in the room for me, and was actually talked about on Twitter last week. Is EDH Rec bad for the game of Commander? My take is it is. I think it stifles creativity, and I think EDH Rec is strictly for CEDH. So I think that's what I want our topic next month to be. All right, everyone. We'll see you next time. Catch you later.